Welcome to the Triple Bottom Line, the third in a six-part series on frameworks for sustainability in the course Principles and Methodologies for Sustainable Design. And my name is Professor Rob Fleming. Last week we took a quick look at global warming and smoking as different examples of widespread societal problems, and to really show that these kinds of things can be solved and solved rather quickly. So we should be optimistic on some level. This week we're going to be looking at the triple bottom line as one of more than a few frameworks that we can use for sustainability. And I said earlier, way back when in the first lecture, about how many people use the lack of understanding of what sustainability is as a stalling mechanism to pursue it at a deep level, when in fact it's actually pretty well documented. And this lecture is going to go through some of the basic documentation of and description of how these frameworks work. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Good. A little bit of history leading up to the triple bottom line. The Club of Rome, for example, is one of the first organizations that got together, a small group of international professionals from all kinds of disciplines, got together to talk about the fact that the planet may in fact be running out of resources. And they were looking at resource consumption. What's interesting about this is we had an industrialist, Aurelio Pesce, and Scottish scientist Alexander King working together as leading this effort. And here we see one of the first examples of really true interdisciplinary collaborative work. And what also is meaningful is that we have two different drivers or worldviews at work here. We have the industrialist, which seeks to maximize profit and views nature as limitless. And then we have the scientist who's looking at a more empathetic view of the world, trying to protect its resources, trying to prolong the reserves of energy. So it's really a watershed moment in the history of humanity in terms of the way that we can begin to rethink our position with the natural world. Furthermore, that led to the Limits to Growth, which was a publication that studied in detail the Earth's capacity to continue to provide ecosystem services given the state of population growth at the time. And it still stands as one of the seminal documents in the history of sustainability. The Limit of Growth was commissioned by the scientists, and it suggested how effective policies and cooperative action could contain the threats to the future. And the Club of Rome still meets today and has an active website. In 1984, Lester Brown published The State of the World, which he publishes almost every year. And here he talks about, in 1984, sustainability for one of the first times in such a widespread publication and a prominent text. And this is pretty important in terms of laying the groundwork for what we would see in 1987, which is the development of Our Common Future, the World Commission on Environment and Development by the Brundtland Commission. And anybody who studied sustainability will know that this really is the seminal moment in the future of humanity in the terms of creating a document and a philosophy or idea that can reshape the way that we view nature, view development, and how we can unify those forces. So in American history, we talk about the Declaration of Independence as really a critical document in the formation of this country. Well, now for the world, for the globe, we look at this document really as the equivalent or even more powerful document to drive human behavior in a different direction. And so if you're going to take a course on sustainability, I would probably expect you to read the entire thing, although I know that's probably not realistic, so I've got some excerpts for you. I took out what I think are the most important parts of the document, and I'm going to talk about them now as we go forward. And the first one really is section 40, which talks about environment and development are not separate challenges. They are inexorably linked. And if you think back to last week's lecture on the motivations for sustainability, we looked at those who want to save the environment and those who want to maximize profit from development as really competing motivations. And here in Our Common Future, what they're saying is we need development. We actually need private development in order to raise the quality of life of individuals and therefore allow them to use Earth's resources in a more responsible way. So this really is groundbreaking, and I hope that you all can see how important these kinds of statements are. So I already just talked about that, sorry. So the next one would be, here's one that says, thus economics and ecology must be completely integrated in decision-making and law-making processes. So here they're talking about not only just stating that as an ideal, but to bring that into the actual functioning of governments and companies very directly, to make it operationable and actionable. It's pretty interesting, and it further shows the connection between economics and ecology. In section 43, this is where we start to see social equity as an aspect of the triple bottom line. For example, we're talking about here about improving the position of women in society to protect vulnerable groups and to promote local participation in decision making. And those of you who are in integrated design projects, who do design charrettes, who pursue sustainable design at a deep level, you're always bringing in local people to be part of the decision making process. That's just a basic principle now of sustainable design. And here we're also seeing, of course, the idea of social equity really as critical to sustainability. I think we can pretty much realize from reading the book by Lester Brown, Plan B 4.0, that though when you're in poverty and when you're not having your basic needs met, it's really difficult to think about future generations. So what the UN is saying here is that we need to raise all boats up to some minimal level of quality of existence in order then to tackle sustainability. And so here's the famous quote that you see over and over again: sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. We're going to deconstruct this very carefully in the next few lectures, so I'm not going to spend too much time trying to explain it, but this is sort of like the "we the people" statement in the Constitution for the U.S. That's just how powerful and moving this can be. And yes, so let's look forward to the triple bottom line. And this is something that probably all of you have heard of, and you've probably all seen this diagram over and over again. I personally don't like it very much at all. And so I'm going to see that sustainability occurs at this little tiny intersection here of the overlaps between these people, profit, and planet motivations. And I wonder if that's really going to be the way to create integration, the way to create the kind of sustainable future that we're looking for. And so I put a big cross mark through that and say, I think we can do better. And so what I did some research on John Elkington's book, The Cannibals with Forks. And here he looked at the triple bottom line really as an accounting methodology for corporations and governments to see if their actions or inactions are in line or lining up or aligning to create what we would consider a sustainable future. And so here you see these are actually redrawn by me from the book Cannibals with Forks. And there you see the three bottom lines: the social bottom line, which comes out of social equity. Then we have the economic bottom line, which we know all quite well, and we have the environmental bottom line. When those three tectonic plates, and they move from side to side all the time, when they're fully aligned, we have a condition of sustainability. So it's a much more three-dimensional, a much more integrated model of what the triple bottom line actually was meant to be. And I do think that diagram has done a little bit of damage overall to the understanding of what this could actually be. Now, so the tectonic plates can move side to side, and yes, I think this is a better diagram. But what happens in reality is that these plates don't line up. And when they don't line up, we have what Elkington calls shear zones, or places where the misalignment of values are so distinct that we run into dangerous situations, we run into examples or periods when the environment is in distress, or we go into economic depression, etc. And the goal of sustainability then is to try to align these plates vertically to create a better situation. So if you think about the BP oil spill, which I talked about a couple lectures ago, there was an example of a misalignment of the values that lead to sustainability. So for example, certainly the economic bottom line was foremost in the minds of those people running that company. And in fact, when the oil spill began in the Gulf, the first name on the emergency response list had actually been dead for 5 years. So this tells me that the alignment of priorities was not in order there, and that the company was not really thinking about all three bottom lines simultaneously, and therefore opens itself up to shear zones or to disasters in this case, unfortunate disasters. So the triple bottom line is great. I love it. I'm really happy about it. I think that you all have a better understanding about that already. But what about design? How do those three things really speak to designers? And I know a lot of the people in this class actually are designers. And so I started to wonder about this for actually a long time, because I don't know about you, but when I went to design school, I'd stay up all night working on drawings, trying to make the most beautiful project that I could. And now I start to wonder, how does that fit in? How does that work? So what we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to start to answer the question about how design and other kinds of human motivations beyond self-interest and beyond empathy can begin to be expressed within the rubric of sustainability. So this is the end of the third video. Grazers, please feel free to continue on the Vimeo site. Make sure to follow me on Vimeo. You'll get emails when new videos are posted. And if you're a student or scholar, head back to the course sites page and complete any assignments, readings, and or quizzes that you may find in the module. Okay, thank you.